Well, hello. I want to review a vintage pen. Do you have a vintage pen that you really like, and you wonder about what its modern, not ancestor, its modern descendant is like? Well, I have, what I'm going to review today is the Pelikan 400NN. This is a pen that was released in the late 1950s to early 1960s, and it lives on in its modern incarnation as the Pelikan the Pelikan M400. I do not own a modern Pelikan M400. I've never used one, so I can't compare it to the modern version. But I look forward to sharing it with you. So I'll just open by saying, if you are interested in videos like this about fountain pens or the writing life, please feel free to subscribe below. If you have a vintage pen that interests you, that has a modern descendant, please feel free to talk about it in the comments below. I'm always looking for ideas like that. Now, the Pelikan 400NN is a good pen if you're looking to get into vintage. It is a piston filler, although I do have one caveat I'll come back to later, but it is a piston filler. It has a very nice nib, has a very generous ink flow, and it has that attractive, as you can see here, Pelikan finish, the classic green stripe, which I find very attractive. And I have to say, this really scratched my itch for a modern M800, because I may have mentioned in my top pens video of 2017 that a Pelikan M800 was on my list of aspirational pens. A big chunk of that was this finish. So let's take a look at this finish. So it is somewhat translucent, although the lighting, as I have set it up here, you probably can't tell. Nope. So that was a failure, but you can still appreciate the nice green stripes. Celluloid finish, of course. Piston. The modern version, this would be a squared off. The finial, just plain black. The modern version would be squared off, and there'd be a little pelican there. Still shared, old and new. Pelikan beak is a clip. And then if you look here, Pelikan 400 Germany. Which I was always kind of surprised that they didn't write West Germany on a lot of these pens, but there's probably a reason. The nib, we've got a decent grip section. Oh, you can kind of see the translucency there. Not well, but yeah, there you go. The nib, some people say, oh, you're not showing it its best. It's covered with ink. And I say, it's because it's in use. So it's gold nib. This is I believe it's a fine, but it has a little pelican there. An attractive nib. The feed, oops, and I touched the nib, as you can see. The feed is vertical fins, which is interesting. I haven't read what the advantage of vertical fins over horizontal fins is, but I'm sure they have their reasons. It's an ebonite feed, so you'll find these where the feed perhaps has been a bit damaged. Still works. You can chip off a piece of the ebonite and it's fine. One thing that you'll find with some of these pens, and I'm going out of order here, but there is I'm not going to do this right now, but up here, apparently some of them have like a polystyrene collar around the nib, and it breaks. Mine is old enough that it's an ebonite collar. So that is something to be aware of if you buy one of these. Although, I guess you can buy replacement parts. The pen, it's just a good vintage pen if you like to collect usable, fun models. It was produced 1956 to 1965. Mine is at the older end. In fact, my link that I just shared will have pictures of its evolution. A celluloid barrel, which I think I said that already. Ebonite feed, vertical fins. Now, here's something interesting. I'm not sure how to show this. Do you see how when I tighten it, I catch and then it goes again? There's a metal liner inside the cap. Oh boy. Well, you're just going to have to trust me. There's a metal liner inside the cap that helps keep the nib from drying out. You'll see a lot of pens now have a liner of some kind inside the cap. I don't have one handy because I'm here in the base. Yes, I have one handy. So this is not at all a Pelikan. This is a Pilot Custom 823, but it's what's handy in Demonstrator. You see there's a darker bit in there. That's an inner cap that'll make a seal here. So it just helps keep the nib from drying out. And that's what's in the Pelikan, only it's, metal. I haven't met many metal ones that have a metal one. And one of the problems, as I've read, is that since this is celluloid, as this shrinks, because that's a somewhat unstable plastic, it can crack. And that's another thing to look for, because the metal doesn't shrink while the plastic does. 14 karat gold nib. Now the NN, which is not written on the pen, but the NN stands for Neu Neu, which is German for new new. I don't understand why they had to repeat it. That was obscure to me from the link I was looking at. And well, I'm sure you've heard enough babbling and you've looked at it enough. Let's see how it writes. This pen was also available in what they called a tortoise shell finish. Saw one for sale actually just recently that interested me, but the price is about $300. I said, no, it doesn't interest me that much. So we'll just go with this. So this is the Pelikan 400 NN. I'm going with extra fine, but it might be a fine. I apparently didn't write that in my show notes. The ink is the very lovely Noodler's Black Swan. And I know some people are seeing the word Noodler's in a vintage pen. And I'll just say relax, this isn't one of the scary ones. You won't see Bay State Blue in this pen. So Noodler's Black Swan and Australian Rose. A good ink for showing off a great pen. Did I say flex? Now, perhaps not a wet noodle, but darn, that looks good. So unflexed, flexed, and always flex your downstrokes only. So, very impressive. So now let's take a look at the wetness and flow. Make sure I'm on screen here. Oops. So unflexed, somewhat flexed. No trouble keeping up. This is a very generous feed. The smear test. Unflexed. Flexed. Hey! So yeah, we're laying down a decent amount of ink. And then the test that's always a surprise to me, because I'm not into that kind of thing, is reverse writing. Scratchy, definitely extra fine if it's not writing extra fine already. So now, let's turn to our quote. So, I like this pen. I think if you can find it at a decent price, this is good value in vintage. You have a good nib. It's flexible. I think it's reliable. It holds a surprising amount of ink. In fact, I was holding off on writing this because I wanted to, save the ink for the review. Well, tonight, before I came downstairs to film the review, I held it up to my eye and I just like, whoa, there's still a lot of ink in there. So I think this pen will be reappearing in my regular circulation for another week or two. I mean, it's just a lot of ink in that barrel. The celluloid finish, of course, is attractive. It's comfortable to hold. If you don't flex it, it's a perfectly comfortable pen. If you flex it, it is flexible and can keep up. It's just a very, very nice pen. And so if you're looking to getting started in vintage and you want to look at a more reliable piston filler, give it a look. And I will also tell you that using this pen gives me some excitement about someday trying a modern M400 or one of the other modern Pelikan pens. So if videos like this where I review fountain pens, both vintage and new, interest you, please feel free to subscribe below. If there's a particular vintage pen, a classic vintage pen, that has a modern incarnation you think is worthy of consideration, please feel free to comment on that below. So I thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.